Coming back for some brand new breaking news. MS Now has just learned that FBI Director Kash Patel may be out of a job in the coming months. 3 people with knowledge of the situation say President Trump and his top aides have grown tired of Patel and the unflattering headlines he's been generating recently, including using a government jet to visit his girlfriend and enlisting a SWAT team as her security detail. Joining us, MS Now Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Dilanian and MS Now White House reporter Laura Barone-Lopez. Both of them broke this story along with Carol Leonnig. Ken, give me more.
Well, Katie, I should say, first of all the qualifiers apply here. With Donald Trump and personnel decisions, you never actually know exactly what's going on. But we are being told that Kash Patel, the FBI director, is on increasingly thin ice. And the president is considering replacing him by the end of the year with Andrew Bailey, the former Attorney General of Missouri, who is acting now as co-deputy FBI director, along with Dan Bongino. And it's for all the reasons that you just said and others. The use of taxpayer resources, the flying his girlfriend around on the FBI jet, but also the premature tweets, including related to the Charlie Kirk assassination and other investigations, that terrorist attack in Michigan where Patel got out in front of the investigation and tweeted about the arrests before the rest of the government was ready for that to happen. So Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche of the Justice Department have been annoyed with Patel for a long time, although they've publicly denied it when others have reported it. And now it's increasingly clear that the White House is as well. Now, our reporting this may actually enhance his job security, right? So it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen, but that is the reporting at this hour, Katie.
Yeah, no, we have seen situations where when it comes out that somebody is being considered for removal in order to prove that that Donald Trump does not have any chaos on his team or in his cabinet, has come out and said, no, of course not. I'm not considering anything. Let me play the president a little bit earlier today talking about Kash Patel during the Turkey pardon.
FBI Director Kash Patel has been very busy and doing a great job. Also, thank you, Kash.
Was that scripted? Was that always intended to be there, or was he responding to a question, Laura?
Look, I will say that right before we went out there for that Turkey pardon, I had asked the White House for comment on this story. And so because sources had been telling me, those that were talking to Carol and Ken were also telling us that essentially this ouster could be closer than ever. And part of that is because Andrew Bailey would now be able to take that role after reaching this 90-day requirement for being in that position. And so the White House had responded to me right before this event started. White House spokesperson Abigail Jackson, not denying it outright, not calling this false, but she did say that the FBI Director Patel is a critical member of the president's team and that he's working tirelessly to ensure the integrity of the FBI. That's what Abigail Jackson, the White House spokeswoman, said. And then after that, I went out there for the Turkey pardon into the Rose Garden. And I thought it was interesting that the president said, thanked him and said that he was doing a, quote, great job. And then there was some clapping and the president said, see, Kash, you have a following. So was it scripted? That's the timing when it happened. But this appears closer than it's ever been before because, of course, sources close to the White House have told me that they've definitely heard grumblings about Patel for all the reasons that Ken laid out. But this time around, more because of the back-to-back bad headlines about Patel's use of government resources seems to really be pushing those around the president and allies to the edge when it comes to Patel, Katie.
Yeah, no, what's interesting, Ken, is if we think about the first administration and when cabinet members had been ousted, a lot of them had been accused of mishandling or misusing government funds, misusing government planes, a version of corruption, and I guess this would fall into the same category. If you're talking about the SWAT team and the using the private jet, at the very least, just a misuse or an unseemly use of government property.
Yes, and the SWAT team reference, just to make sure our viewers understand, goes back to our reporting that members of the SWAT team in Nashville have been deployed as a security detail for Kash Patel's country singer girlfriend who lives in Nashville. And the New York Times has reported that other SWAT details from other cities have also been enlisted in that cause. What's also interesting, and you're absolutely right, Katie, that those kinds of things, Donald Trump has a track record of looking on with distaste and disdain. But what's also interesting is that Kash Patel is under fire from MAGA activists for things that probably our viewers are not paying attention to. There's a series of conspiracy theories, for example, about the January 6th pipe bombs. That case remains unsolved. A lot of people in the MAGA world have these unfounded beliefs that somehow the government was involved, that the FBI is covering up. And Kash Patel and Dan Bongino have not been as forthcoming as these people would like about that case. So they're mad about that. They were also angry the other day when they essentially leaked a story to Fox News, or did an interview with Fox News, and laid out their findings in the assassination plot against Donald Trump, and essentially said the guy acted alone, there's no larger conspiracy. That runs against a lot of conspiracy theories that are percolating in MAGA world right now. And so it's a really interesting dichotomy. You have, so every current and former FBI agent I've ever talked to has absolute disdain for the way Kash Patel is running the Bureau.
Joining me now is MS Now's Ken Delanian and law professor at Southwestern Law School, former JAG officer Rachel Van Landingham. Thank you both for being here. Ken, I understand you have brand new reporting about the investigation into this video. What are you learning?
Chris, we've learned via a person familiar with the matter that the FBI has reached out to schedule interviews with the 6 senators. They've done that through the Capitol Police, and that doesn't mean there's an FBI investigation underway, but it is a remarkable development considering what they actually said and whether there's any evidence of a crime. Most people think there is not, but nonetheless, the FBI is reaching out to schedule these interviews. Of course, one of the issues here would be the speech and debate clause. Members of Congress are protected from prosecution for things they say and do connected to their legislative duties, not just things they say on the House or Senate floor, but things connected to their legislative duties. No doubt they would argue that this statement falls under that bailiwick. But again, we're a long way from that. But it is interesting and newsworthy that the FBI is reaching out to schedule interviews with these senators, Chris.
Thank you so much for that. So, Rachel, obviously that is separate and apart from what I want to talk to you about, because that involves all 6. Let's talk about what's facing Mark Kelly. When they say they're launching a review, in military terms, what are they reviewing and what does an investigation actually look like?
Thank you. So it would look like just going through the video and determining whether or not any of this, what I believe is absolutely First Amendment protected free speech, would fall underneath any of the articles of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is the military's military penal code, and to see if it rises to the level of one of the military crimes that does restrict service member speech to a greater degree. It's really crazy here, though, and unusual, because the UCMJ actually does still apply to retirees like myself, like to Senator Kelly, but to abuse it in such a way to try to threaten a sitting senator to be court-martialed under one of the UCMJ provisions is just extraordinary.
Yeah, I want to make sure we're clear because, Rachel, the president said this was evidence of seditious behavior, but sedition is not mentioned in the tweet from the Pentagon. It only says that military retirees are subject to federal laws, and I'm quoting here, that prohibit actions intended to interfere with the loyalty, morale, or good order and discipline of the armed forces. So do we know what law or what regulation they're saying he broke?
Sure, I think they're referring.
What you're witnessing here is the collapse of even law enforcement around Trump, with his allies and him further and further splintering, because he has no control and he's absolutely, one, violated his oath of office many times. So the rare few people around him that have integrity obviously aren't happy. But then also, he seems to have even backed away from the reasons he supposedly ran for office. One of them being getting Jeffrey Epstein, justice on the Epstein affair, right? But the reality is, Kash Patel was one of the people that was sort of like blindsided by Trump on this, right? he was blindsided on Trump by this because he was one of the leading proponents of all of the conspiracies surrounding that. Now, not all of it was conspiracy, but some of it was, and he was pushing it. And so he was made director of the FBI, and that was seen by a lot of people on the right who cared about Epstein as a good sign. It's like, oh my goodness, Trump picked a guy who's like an outsider, and he's actually going to get to the truth because he's talked about it. But lo and behold, what happened is he bent the knee, and he said on a dime, like back in May, back in April, whenever it was, actually, there's nothing to see here. It was actually a hoax. This is not a big deal. Everyone's innocent, especially Trump, and on and on and on. And of course, they had to back down from that position because of massive pressure from the public, from Democrats, and even from some Republicans. And then in addition, you have Patel embarrassing Trump every day. Embarrassing him with his conduct, embarrassing him with the little sniping fights he has with Pam Bondi, embarrassing him with the scandals around using the FBI plane to fly his girlfriend around, apparently, or at least to go see his girlfriend, do concerts, and using security maybe for his personal uses. It's all unnecessary. And here's the thing with Trump. Usually you're not allowed to grift like he is. His family can. His family can. That's allowed. As long as they, make sure that they praise him. But usually when you're a Trump staffer, you're not supposed to grift. You're not supposed to do it because it makes Trump look bad. And once you start grifting and Trump isn't getting his cut from the grift, then there's no cut here for Trump. That's when things get ugly. So the FBI-Trump feud, it's going to explode.